HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team is 1-1. Yeah, I hope my team is 1-1. Yeah, I hope my team is 1-1. I hope my team is 1-1. Yeah. I tuned into the HBCU Sports Lab to see my team run along. Hit the law. I'm quiet as a mouse, but if they won, she's half. How much is the jam? Yeah. Dr. Cavil, we know what he be talking about. Malcolm Charles, they know what they be talking about. They can put the analytic data with the score out. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, yeah, who's the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention. And you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC. And let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Cavil, Mike and Charles.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, presented by Amber Slaughter, the project architect. Amber Slaughter, the project architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team management, so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the project architect, at www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. That's www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. Welcome and thanks for joining us inside our lecture hall, the HBCU Sports Lab, for the only weekly sports talk radio show that is dedicated to exploring the sporting HBCU diaspora with its unique HBCU cultural identity, including the marching sport, the teams, the bands, coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, provosts, presidents, and big rivalry matchup, classic games, homecoming events, and much, much more of the HBCU athletic aesthetics. As we emerge our lecture with the sport business practices in the competitive sports industry, the show seeks to provide innovative, progressive, and informative dialogue about the week's HBCU sporting events, issues, and ideas from a fan's perspective. We review the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, better known as the MEAC of the NCAA Division I, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, CIAA, of the NCAA Division II, Gulf Coast Athletic Conference of the NAIA, and independent programs such as Tennessee State of the OVC, Hampton of the Big South, Langston of the Sooner Athletic Conference, GCAC of the NAIA, and independent programs such as Tennessee State of the OVC, Hampton of the Big South, Langston of the Sooner Athletic Conference, along with Texas College affiliate member for football, as well as Edward Waters as they transition from NAIA to NCAA Division II and membership in the SIAC, as we talked about the Sooner Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. With that, welcome to the new year.
Yes, very much so.
Happy New Year to everybody right there.
Happy New Year, yes indeed.
Because this is our first show of 2020. Man, that sounds all right. 2020.
2020.
With that, Charles, what type of news do you have for us in 2020 in regards to HBCU athletics?
Well, we got a lot of basketball news to get to, but let's start off breaking news this afternoon.
Breaking news?
From HBCU Game Day, Stephen Gaither.
What are you talking about?
Thaddeus Taylor. He is leaving Virginia Union, running back for Virginia Union. He's leaving early to enter the 2020 NFL Draft.
That is big news.
That is big news. The VU running back, Thaddeus Taylor, has announced he will forego his final season of college eligibility to enter the 2020 NFL Draft. So this is a statement from him after long, restless nights of trying to figure out my next move. I'm excited to announce that I will not be participating in my last year of eligibility at VU. That Taylor, he wrote that on Instagram, so he'll be declaring for the NFL Draft. 6 foot, 225 pound running back.
Wish the young man well.
Yes, indeed.
What is his classification, Colonel?
He is
junior, I guess.
Yes.
Wow.
Big news.
Yeah, certainly big news. What are your thoughts? Have you had a chance to evaluate anything or read any of his evaluations of
waiting
in regards to
get a draft number on him? But if you remember when he was coming out of high school, he was a big name prospect. He initially signed with Virginia Tech, but ended up having some legal issues along the way, and he sort of bounced around and ended up there at Virginia Union. So he's taking
made it work, and now he's looking to see if he can get paid for his skills on the professional level.
Very much so.
I wish him, as I said, wish them all the success in the world. Be interesting to follow to see how things runs out in terms of that. Did some good things for Virginia Union in regards to them being in the race, but there was this big truck, if you would, or better, I should say, a big bulldog.
Right, this big bulldog. Big bulldog. 2 years worth of bulldog.
Virginia State kind of stood in the way.
Yes,
before going over to do, but they did get that big win over Hampton this year.
Yes, they did.
In terms of a Division II over FCS Division I.
Right.
Which got a lot of excitement for some fans out there and a lot of cramming in terms of what was going on for Hampton.
Yeah, he really
So that's a good point.
popped up on my radar last year. I mean, he rushed for, I think, close to 1,500 yards, not over 1,500 yards. Dealt with some injury issues this past season. Still ran for 800 some odd yards, but NFL built.
Yeah, that's another thing too. When the injuries they start coming, we seen that with another big name player from a Power 5 program, where you seen that same type of framework where you get injured and you're like, hey, you know, this may be the best time in regards to me taking advantage of where I am before I get any further injuries that really debilitate me and take the professional side out of it. So great point when you start breaking down all that analysis for our listeners out there. What else do you have?
Let's start off with the SWAC Women's Basketball Player of the Week. Some really gaudy numbers for this young lady, Nia Mitchell. She was named SWAC Women's Basketball Player of the Week. If I can get my computer here to stop updating here for a second, but a huge week for her in terms of what she was able to do. The Bay City, Texas native led TSU to a 2-0 start in SWAC play. While with a record weekend, she averaged 19 points, 17 and a half rebounds, Dr. Cavil, and 4.5 steals while shooting 77% from the field, 17 of 22. She posted 2 double-doubles with a high of 22 rebounds against Southern while grabbing 13 rebounds against Alcorn. Mitchell scored 16 versus Southern and then backdoors that with 22 points against the Lady Braves. Nia Mitchell, she was named the Women's Basketball Player of the Week.
You're going to have to repeat some of those numbers again, because I'm not sure if everybody really understood what you just said, because those are obviously crazy type numbers.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that people understand the domination she had in regards to those things.
How's this for being a Swiss Army knife? 19 points over 2 games, 17 and a half rebounds, 4.5 steals per game. She went 77% from the field, 17 of 22. And if you watch Nia play, I tell you what, she's all over the place. She's undersized to be in the paint, but she goes up and gets rebounds with vigor. I tell you what, watching her against Southern, really kind of control rebounds and whatnot. Always kind of weird. Kind of reminds you a little bit of the way Rodman positions himself. You know, to always looking at words to see whether that Karen is coming off the rim, but she did a tremendous job over the weekend. 19 points, 17 and a half rebounds, 4.5 steals, 77% from the field.
Yes, for you all, that was Paris Ely, the resident engineer and all things, everything. Also does a great show here on K-Switch, 12:30 a.m. in the morning. You need to check him out early afternoon, I should say, Paris Ely, as he brings some analysis of just cultural events, politics, and everything in terms of the community. Check out Paris Ely as he brings it on KCOH 12:30 a.m. But he always treats us well and makes sure that we're ready to go. So he's doing some engineering, making sure that we're getting it to it. With that, before I bring it back to you for any further updates, let's check in with some of our fans here that jumped on this 2020. Chuck Hunt, Lawrence, D. White checking us out. Reggie Howe says Happy New Year. Chuck Hunt says he's checking in from Monroe, Louisiana, always bringing it and getting it done for us. He says, I'm off work today. Congratulations to you. I know how that feels.
Yes,
I'm able to watch and listen this evening. We appreciate you taking your valuable time of your off day to tune us in, and hopefully we'll do you proud. We got some basketball updates for you. We're going to give you some top 5 major division basketball, men's and women's. Next week we'll start developing both mid-major and major. I'm not sure if we'll have time to really get in there. We will look at some basketball in terms of some old records. Virginia State continues to do what they need to do. Tuskegee surprised a lot of people in the SIEC in terms of what they're doing in that, if you would, Eastern Division of the SIEC. Lawrence D. White says, L-Dog, White, PVU, checking in from Big D. Oh, appreciate it. The Dallas is representing. I'll be up that way in Dallas tomorrow evening doing some leadership training. Sonia Stamps is in here checking us out. Appreciate you, Sonia. Always proud to have the women get in here and check us out. Boy, you talk about some of the women can bring some knowledge on some sports in terms of the kind of fan. You can shake a stick at it if you want to, particularly from the HBCU perspective. We got some of the best going out there. Chuck Hunt says, Happy New Year's 2020 to you all. Appreciate it. Lonnie Shaw is continuing to bring it as his chest is just as big as ever as it should be in terms of the North Carolina A&T Aggies.
Yes, indeed.
That Aggie pride, boy. It's a good time. It's a good time. Whether it's 2019, 2020, 2018, 2017. Man, it's a good time. Aggie pride. Yeah. Man, for the last 5 years, dominated so many sports in the top of the divisions, and they back at it in basketball, doing really solid. Big win, overtime win over Florida A&M. That everybody was excited, particularly for HBCUs. MEAC, as they finally showed out before the end of the year, getting a big upstate over Iowa State. But took it tough in the MEAC. Yes, you know, MEAC 0-2. They did play that overtime game.
Welcome to conference play.
But Aggies found a way to get it done. Roland Austin, big time booster out there at Prairie View A&M University. My understanding, he's sitting up there getting his floor seats. He wants to make sure Prairie View is represented this weekend for that big rivalry game. Every folks in Vegas saying they're going to try to buy all them floor seats down. I said, oh man, that's cold-blooded. I said, it's cold-blooded. But do what you do. That's what you do. Roland Austin.
Make their home your home.
And Roland Austin, one of the folks who will feel real comfortable. He tends to be real comfortable.
That's all right.
But Texas Southern is excited. There's the Panthers coming into town, women are 2-0, men are 1-1. Tough loss yesterday. A little bit. Yeah. Credit to the Brave Alcorn and saying, hey, we want to be in this thing. 15 points.
Yeah.
Now the guard was out for Texas Southern. Tyreek Armstrong, as you mentioned, but that's a lot of points.
It's a lot of
put it on one player. But
tell you what,
we see this.
Johnny Jones mentioned after the game, you know, Alcorn's a little bit unique. They have 3 guys that can take you off the dribble,
right,
and can score.
Take you off the dribble and shoot pretty well on the outside. So it's hard to play when that mix when you had that skill set. And so get a chance to break that game down as we got to see that. I went to Prairie View Saturday during the day. Got to see Alcorn against Prairie View Saturday, the women and men. And then shot down to see the men play Southern. And then obviously the Prairie View Southern game was on ESPNU, so it was televised. So that was good to see in regards to that matchup. It'll be interesting in terms of facility. A lot of people were raving about that flat screen, big screen, what you want to call it up there, playing those replays. There was a big play in the women's game where it was certainly timing where, as you talk about player of the week on the women's side, Naya was coming off like this inbound play right in the lane with about 12-footer right inside the mark there. Saw the ball in there, jumped up, was pushed out by Alcorn body trying to create some space. She was able to tip the ball. It goes in. Obviously, because of the context, she gets the foul. So everybody was mesmerized what they saw. Right. But it was funny. Everybody instantly looked up and they showed a replay and it goes crazy. I was like, Now that's how you feel
alley-oop action.
Big time play in a big time game in a big time arena, getting out there. So that was pretty exciting. So continue to see HBCUs make strides in regards to building their facilities. So that's significant. So I was excited about that, and we exposed that for Texas Southern University. What other news as we shout out some of these fans, and I appreciate you joining us in 2020.
Sure thing. Let's take a look at the men's SWAC Player of the Week, and that goes to Marquindrick Bell from Arkansas Pine Bluff. The forward was named SWAC Men's Basketball Player of the Week following an impressive outing versus Mississippi Valley State. Bell had a career high in his home state and a dominant performance for Arkansas Pine Bluff in their conference opener against Mississippi Valley State. Bell scored 26 of his 33 points in the second half and also scored 26 points consecutively for the Golden Lions over a 7+ minute span. They couldn't turn him off. As UAPB scored a season high 55 points. You
turned him on. Goodness gracious, you talking about living a faucet run. This kind of thing when you're young and telling you better. Who left all these lights on? Who left the water on? You don't pay none of these bills.
That's Benny Microwave Johnson type stuff. Hot.
Let it turn him on.
Give him the ball. Give him the ball. That's coach. Give him the ball. Give him the ball. Move. Give him the ball.
I love it. So what you doing? So, wow, it's big time play. So, any other news?
Yeah, we're going to mention some notable performances around the SWAC. Tristan Jarrett, he finished with 31 points on 10 of 21 shooting from the field, including 10 made free throws and 6 rebounds and 2 steals in Jackson State's season opening, conference opening win over Alabama State. They beat Alabama State 70-67. We mentioned Alcorn, their hot shooter, but Maurice Howard, he averaged 24 points over the weekend as he posted a career high 31 points in the win over Texas Southern on Monday. He went 5 of 8 from the three-point line, 14 for 15 from the free throw line. Howard's 14 free throws made were the third most all-time in school history in a single game, and that's significant because Alcorn has some significant basketball history.
No doubt about that.
Came as he scored a team high 17 points against Prairie View on Saturday. So those were a couple of notable performances in the SWAC.
Great points that you make there. This weekend, in terms of our major division, as we talk about it here, well, you can jump in some mid-majors if you have some notable appointments. What are some of your big thoughts of the weekend? Either big games, whether upsets, if you would want to call it that, or big wins by big teams, or statements. Like I said, major division or mid-major division. Tell us about what stood out this essentially for the MEAC and SWAC for sure was opening weekend conference play. GCAC, I think you had one conference game that went on, and they'll start getting those last week. You've seen CIAA and SIEC as they've gotten into conference play over the last couple of weeks, but big weekend for the major divisions. Yeah, but as you've seen that with the non-conference independents, as we like to talk about, as we open up the show with Tennessee State is playing some really good basketball in OVC. I'll let you take that over. Maybe you'll dig into that if you want to. Or Hampton Big South made a decent statement, both men's and women's, in regards to the opening weekend for Hampton women's side. They played a couple of games in the conference, so that's different there. What are your thoughts on some of the big updates in terms of basketball, not just players as you highlighted, but teams overall? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the teams that we were watching over the weekend, Texas Southern women's basketball team, they were picked to finish 5th in the SWAC. And I don't think that's going to happen at all. They have 3 legitimate scores. I think that was a statement. They won for over 100 points against Alcorn the other night. So.
We were talking to Ryan McGitty on the way out. He went back to the coming days, 2014-13, and he couldn't find the last time they put up 100 points any recent time. So we'll put it that way in terms of the recent history of women's basketball, which has been pretty good of late. Both under Cynthia Cooper, the first year she was there, we kind of built that program. Saw coaches take over, do well as well. Winning the championship. Cooper did the regular season. We saw that take about You're right in terms of making a statement.
Yeah.
Wow, Texas Southern
Yeah, Texas Southern
wins basketball.
definitively not a state. 105 points. And then
What is it, 4 players in double digits, 3 over 20?
Exactly. 4 players in double digits, 3 players who had 20. Another one that I think Monday night that kind of caught my eye was Alabama A&M. On the road against Jackson State. Got a big man in the center, big man in the paint. He went for 20 and 10. So I think that's something to keep your eye on with Alabama A&M. Everybody's been talking about the freshman 5 or the Fab 5, if you will, that are at Alabama A&M. They get a split this weekend with Jackson State and Grambling. A big win for Alabama A&M over Jackson State.
Anything in the MEAC?
Within the MEAC,
what about that Coppin State going on?
I was about to say Coppin State going on too. That was the thing that kind of caught my eye. Wasn't expecting
Division I wins on the men's side. We're talking about the women's side is struggling. They're 0-14 to make sure we get that cleared up.
Yeah.
They're 0-2, so they lost their 2. But the men came in playing some really good basketball. As you saw Jimmy in terms of his preseason indicators, where he looked at rankings, he had them as high as number 2, which I think was appropriate with 4 Division I wins.
Correct.
But as we talk about, you get in conference play, people know you, they get a chance to really dig in and research set plays for you, and it can be different. It can be a different challenge in regards to what you're doing. So credit to Coppin in terms of what they did in non-conference for. That's nothing to shake your head on. Second highest win, number of Division I wins in terms of any team on the men's side. If you would, Tennessee State is just right now on a different level.
They are
in terms of what they showed non-conference in first weekend with 2 solid wins, particularly one of them really
very solid wins.
The team that came in with the winning record as well. So both games at home, so we get a chance to see what they do on the road. But talking about making an early statement in conference play, it looks like Tennessee State says they want to be in the mix. Second-year coach. Both of these folks, if you would, in regards to Coppin State, Tennessee State. So I thought those were some of the things that stood out to me. Hampton on the women's side, playing some really good basketball in terms of the way they jumped out in conference play, making some statements that they're going to be in the mix. So it'll be interesting, which they did early last season in terms of conference play and kind of fell out of sorts.
Right.
Still were in the top 3rd, 4th of the conference.
They tapered a bit, if you will, during the course of the season.
So it'll be interesting to see will this season be different. With Coach Six up there, David Six, you'd have to think that he's going to find a way to get it done. He's had some big-time seasons for Hampton, so he knows how to go get them. He knows how to coach them, and they seem to pull through for him. So I'm keeping my eye, if you would, one eye, as they say, those good eyes. Of course. On what Hampton Lady Pirates are doing. Anything else stand out for you in regards to what's going on there?
Well, another team, a good start for them, the Grambling men. They go 2-0 this past weekend. So good, I guess, eye-opener as far as a couple of teams in terms of not, I guess, dropping off, if you will, and having just a good opener in terms of swag play. Grambling men is one of the teams I'm kind of keeping an eye on. If there's going to be, we talked about the Texas two-step and how it might be with Texas Southern and Prairie View, but if there's going to be a challenger to this Texas supremacy that some people talk about, Grambling's going to be right there in the mix.
No doubt about it on the men's side. On the women's side, I think one of the toughest road trips is looks like Prairie View women are not necessarily going to be as tough as many people considered going into conference.
A little bit of a surprise,
0-2 start. Played 2 solid teams, it looks like. Certainly one of them you expect to be there. Southern bounce back after we talk about Texas Southern making a statement. Team that didn't. But I think one of the other road trips are going to be tough this year on the women's side, as you kind of talk about the Grambling, is going to be that Grambling and Jackson State pair road trip for a lot of folks. It's going to be very tough. Right behind that is going to be that Alabama road trip, which is always tough. But it looks like Alabama A&M, the Lady Bulldogs, if you would, will be tough. And Alabama State, the Lady Hornets, have been tough over the last 5 years. So it's going to be some tough road trips on the women's side. I mean, both always tough on the road trip.
Right. You mentioned that Grambling-Jackson State road trip. We, of course, know about Grambling's women's team in terms of their success last year, past couple of years with their outstanding performer, and then this season he got off to a good start. But Tamika Reed at Jackson State, she also is going to have a pretty good team on her hands. Marnisha Hammer is a load in the middle, and then they found some scoring from the outside with Kaiser Lucker.
Well, you know it's going to be another tough road trip in terms of MEAC, right in the heart of the MEAC, Carolina.
Yeah.
Both on the men and the women.
That is not the one.
If you got the pair with Central and A&T, you know, a lot of people talk about that basketball-rich history. Last couple of weeks, you know, we gave you a great interview in terms of the history of North Carolina Central with John B. McClendon in terms of what he did in North Carolina Central those first 15 years that he was there. A lot of people obviously know about his overall history. Specifically, if you're an HBCU fan, you surely know about what he did with winning those 3 straight championships at Tennessee A&I at the time, obviously Tennessee State, big time. But you're talking about harder basketball in a lot of ways, North Carolina.
Yes, indeed.
Well, it looks like they're going to be that way for HBCUs. And you talk about the CIAA, it's always tough to go in North Carolina. Multiple teams, Winston State, Johnson C. Smith, to name a few of them, Livingstone, in terms of what you get there. Oh, wow. It's just, can't forget about Fayetteville State.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Will be interesting is they are already hyping up CIAA basketball tournament. You're talking about don't know how to do it. You know how to do it. Talking about that whole trip there. But that stood out a little bit. Norfolk State is another one in regards to men's and women's.
Yeah.
Norfolk State is seen to have it rolling. Bethune-Cookman, family interest, always a long trip. But certainly on the women's side, with Bethune-Cookman, what they're doing, oh man, but we're just getting started.
Just getting started. This is first stuff.
About it, but let me get into a little more of the mix in regards to some of these records that come up here with Norfolk State getting the first 2 victories on the women's side. I told you Hampton is sitting at 3-1. Some of these teams you'll see because they're going to end up following in the top 5. But some teams that are struggling early that we need to make sure we acknowledge in some way. Talked about Common Statement, 0-14. We have some teams that haven't found a way to get some wins. That's got to be disconcerting. What are your thoughts in terms of teams like we said Cotton State not being able to get on the winning ledger? We see, wow, that's just tough there.
Well, it kind of jumped out to me with Cotton State starting out 0-2. It kind of speaks to the strength of the conference. I mean, you got your 4, mid-major wins and whatnot, but welcome to conference play.
With just 1 win.
Yeah. So, those were things that really kind of jumped out for me, if you will.
Those are teams, though, I'll put it this way, very early. That's where you better get your wins. Slip in there. Old secret to the swag in a lot of people's eyes. You split on the road, and you want to win at home. You do that, you're going to be in the hunt conference-wise. Let me do this as we get into on the men's side. Let's look more thoughts. Kind of give you some share of what's taking place there. Before I do that on the men's side, in regards to what's going on in CIAA, talked a little bit about Virginia State, the strength of what's going on there, or in the SIAC, excuse me. What are your thoughts in terms of Tuskegee surprising a lot of people and what they're doing early on?
Tuskegee's men?
Yeah, Tuskegee.
Tuskegee's men. One name that jumps out, and he was the SIAC Player of the Week this past week, was Miles Thomas. You're talking about a senior forward. He averaged 17.6 points and 5 rebounds and wins over Fort Valley, Savannah State, and Benedict. Tuskegee, they jumped out early in terms of a 6-1 record in conference play. James Eads, he leads them in scoring, 19.5 points a game. Miles Thomas, SIAC Player of the Week, 15.8 points per game. And Deshaun Middleton, 11.6 points per game. So 3 guys that can put it up and score. So they're going to be a tough team to kind of deal with going forward.
Yeah, when you talk about what they're doing in the SICC, I believe we want to make sure we shout them out and give them some love there. Let's get into, well, let me go ahead and start the year off right. I got to make sure I do this. This is just itchy.
What up, world? It's your boy Rob Calloway, host of the HBCU Report, and right now, you're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my guy, all hail the dean of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, my guy. What's happening, man?
Wait till I find Rob Calloway.
I didn't want to get too far into the show.
You say you want to start off 2020 on the right note.
Yeah, you should surprised I to do it early.
I know, right? It took a second to get into it.
In terms of what's going on there. But let me see if I can give you these major divisions. Let's do some chivalry. We'll start with the women in terms of my top 5, week number 1. And let me know your thoughts in terms of what's going on here. First receiving votes is a Howard Lady Bison that sit at 9-6, 1-1 conference play after first week of MEAC basketball play. So just on the outside with 11 points, if you would. But you have at number 5, Bethune-Cookman Lady Wildcats sit at 9-5, 1-1, 58 points. They do have one first place vote, as you see them get it done. At number 4, Hampton Lady Pirates sit at 7-6, 3-1 in the Big South with 71 points. At number 3, you have North Carolina A&T State, the Aggies, sit at 9-5, 1-0. One first place vote, 80 points. Texas Southern Tigers 7-6, 2-0, 2 first place votes. And number 1 is Norfolk State Spartanettes sit at 8-7, 2-0. So you'll hear me say some lady teams in terms of the mascots, and some you won't. Interesting when you see with HBCUs, you've seen this trend with a lot of schools where they've taken off the lady term. So some schools prefer that all the athletic programs. You see some coaches that have kind of pushed for this on the women's side, but they use just the general overall mascot of the athletic department, while you have some that still like to use the lady mascot vernacular. And then one I hadn't seen in a while is the It's.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that.
Spartanettes.
Yeah.
So that was interesting when you talk about that. So just to give everybody up front, while you'll hear me say at times lady in terms of the mascot and other times not, it's because I'm trying to use whatever preferred nickname in terms of the mascot, if you would, that the women's program prefers to use. But with that, top 5 programs in the major division side, women's basketball. What are your thoughts in terms of those programs, what they did this weekend in a little more detail? Any concerns in terms of the top 5 there? Always early, so there's room for subjectivity. I'm going to let you go ahead and do your thing if you want to pick it apart this week.
No, I mean, it's early, so I expect some fluctuation, if you will. Norfolk State, I would expect them to be right there at the top in the MEAC. We talked about it earlier at the beginning of the show. Texas Southern, the Lady Tigers, in terms of where they were predicted to be, and now after kind of looking at them over the opening weekend, I just don't see that they're going to kind of fall to the middle of the pack, if you will, in the SWAC. And this is going to be a very competitive race on the women's side of the ball in the SWAC this season, and I think Texas Southern is going to be right in the mix. Southern, I was concerned about coming into conference play because on 2 wins coming into conference play, and the scoring hadn't picked up yet. Lyric Scott was only averaging 5 points a game, and she was the SWAC tournament MVP. So I think she picked up her scoring over the weekend, and we saw that Southern can play with the top team like Texas Southern, and they go over and get the win against Prairie View. So I think, just kind of taking a look at it, it's very early, but Texas Southern for me was the real eye-opener, if you will, over the weekend.
Give you an update on Rolling On. It's a great point you made there first. Roland also says the Austins and that's his last name. Roland also says the Austins. They have a nice sized family out here. Day one crew will be in the building on Saturday talking trash from the sidelines and repping PV as we leave with another W over TSU. Swag, hashtag champs.
Wow, early. In Byron we trust. I like it.
No, you don't say.
Yes, indeed.
Boy, I tell you, the big time weekend. And we'll have a chance to go over some of those matchups, but before we do that, let's go to the men in terms of the major division, looking at those top 5 programs and see what your thoughts there. A couple of more teams getting votes here, splitting it up. You have more first place votes to get, more points here, and spread out in a lot of different ways. But you have Bethune-Cookman Wildcats receiving votes sitting outside of the top 5, 79-1-1. They split this weekend. They were on the road. It's a big split in terms of what you get in there. Credit goes there. Norfolk State Spartans sit at 6-11, 2-0, 40 and 41 points respectively sitting out. So Norfolk State had 2 big time wins as they got it done, but not enough to get in the top 5 at least this week. Bringing us to number 5, North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 7-8. We told you about Lonnie's over there just smiling at these Aggies. They sit at 7-8, 2-0 in terms of conference play in a lot of ways, getting it done in terms of what takes place there. And number 4, we have Prairie View A&M Panthers sitting at 6-9, 2-0, 2 first place votes. My 2018-2019 basketball major division national champs. And it makes 72 points as we open things up. And number 3, Morgan State Bears, 8-9, 2-0, 81 points as they in the top 3. And number 2, maybe surprising some people, Grambling State Tigers sit at 8-7, 2-0, 2 first place votes, 92 points total, and then you have number 1, pretty easy consensus right now, a lot of ways, with 7 first place votes is none other than Tennessee State Tigers, 10-5, 2-0, 10 wins over the 5 losses in terms of winning percentage is pretty good there in a lot of ways. What are your thoughts on the men's side of the major division?
First thing that jumps out at me, I was looking at North Carolina Central. Didn't see North Carolina Central in there. Morgan State. I'm just sitting here thinking, how tough is MEAC going to be if you got Morgan State, North Carolina A&T already in the top 5, and we haven't mentioned North Carolina Central just yet. So.
Yeah, they just had one conference game, so they went 1-0 in conference play, but had a tough go of it in regards to non-conference play. 5 wins, only 2 of them, I believe, were Division I wins. I'll check that as we give you an update of what Jimmy does in terms of he does the top 10 and he includes the Division I wins. So we'll kind of compare his to what I did here, let you think on that. But just to give you an update on North Carolina Central, they sit at 5-10. So that's a lot of reasons why you don't see that. But as you said, you're talking about a lot of basketball history, basketball team finds a way to get it done. It's going to be interesting in a lot of ways to see what they do. They're able to just turn it on. Remind me in a lot of ways of what you see in the SWAC and previously under Mike Davis. When you see Texas Southern play that very tough non-conference schedule. Sometimes they would get some big-time wins in that tough conference schedule, but sometimes they would come in, at least record-wise, limping in the SWAC play. And then they would just bust on the scene, turn it on, run through the SWAC in a lot of ways, and at least be at the top part of the SWAC. What you saw there. So I thought that was interesting in regards to what's taking place there. So what are your thoughts on this top 5 outside of that? Any other thing throws you out other than North Carolina Central?
Nothing else throws me out. What does stand out for me is Prairie View. I think we saw kind of last year with Prairie View, while everybody else was fighting under them.
Yeah, for seeding for 2, 3, 4.
They were just
trying to get them home.
Exactly. So
it was odd too, because I think a lot of folks are going to see them more in the front early. Picked them, in the top part of the conference. So people ask a question on them. Some areas they played, but you got to believe the confidence is up there.
Exactly.
They're going to be even more coachable than ever. And now you're talking about adding things to it, adding some pieces. So it'll be interesting to see. Lose Blackstone was everything for him.
Sure.
In a lot of ways. Can they replace him? I think is part of the question.
Right.
But as you said, 2 non-conference big wins. Texas Southern got 2 of them in terms of teams that were able to do it. But it'd be interesting. I don't think it will take as long this season for people to believe. Like, I think some people still at the midpoint. They was like, I don't know. I won't say any names.
I raised my hand to that. I wasn't sure. I would believe it now.
No doubt about it. But I want to compare this to the top 10 for Jimmy in regards to what he does. And I like the way he breaks it down because he gives you the D1 wins as well. So at number 10, he has, and this is updated based on what took place after Monday, similar to mine. So he's up to date with that. He says at number 10, you have South Carolina State sitting at 7-9, 1-1. They have 3 Division I wins as they came into it. Split this weekend in South Carolina State. Interesting. Again, another example of what you talk about Coppin State.
Yeah.
Before I go any further, I think it's big to say that he dropped Coppin State out, who was ranked number 2. With their 2 conference losses, he drops them all the way out of top 10. Man, talking about a tough fall from grace for wins, but you talking about a harsh critic. As we talked about for football in terms of grade scale, I hate to see his final exam. Professor Jimmy there.
Exactly.
Number 9, Bethune-Cookman, they're 7-9, 1-1. They had 4 D1 wins. They split this weekend. It's interesting again. Some of these teams that really did well non-conference, not so fast early in the conference play. It'd be interesting to see can they get it back.
And of course, when you say D1, you mean the mid-major, the mid-major.
Yeah, I'm talking about the major division.
Yeah.
When I say D1, that means they actually played other Division I schools and wins. You'll see across the country, particularly, I'm cautious about just quoting the records because you have teams that play Division II NAIA. So I really try to get a judge, particularly early until you get in conference play and let it plays out. Another way to kind of judge to see oftentimes what is teams do in terms of non-conference games. Are they able to get some of these wins, but you also want to measure who the wins were against. And so when I say D1, that they played other D1 schools at this level, we call it the major division, HBCU, unlike what you see in football to throw some people out, you play Division I FCS versus FBS where you have a scholarship difference. But in basketball and all other sports, everybody is Division I. Same scholarship allotment if you choose to offer it or available. Men's and women's basketball are counting sports, so if you give scholarships, you got to get full scholarships to players in men's and women's basketball. So something to think about. Jimmy has done women's basketball before, but he only sent me the men's this time. I have to talk a little bit about that chivalry. Disrespect Title IX and get him. Number 8 is North Carolina Central. So it's a team that you asked about earlier. They sit at 5-10, 1-0 in conference play, but as I said, they only had 2 D1 wins, which means one of their 2 Division I wins is a conference win now. So they only have 1 Division I non-conference win, a la 5-10 record. So you got that going on. Bring us number 7, Hampton Pirates, if you would. They sit at 6-8, 1-0. They come out that 1-0, and they had 3 D1 wins. Bringing us to number 6, North Carolina A&T, 5-11, 4-0. 4 D1 wins. Interesting. Let's get in the top 5 for Jimmy. This is Jimmy's analysis in terms of the men's top 10, if you want to give it that.
This is better than Ken Palm.
And Jimmy is one of the reasons why he does that. He follows basketball more than a lot of things that you see in HBCU that follow football. His biggest sport that he follows is basketball. Men's and women's, but particularly for men's is where he really cuts his teeth. So he gets into the recruiting. We'll get early recruiting information from him. So that's one reason I like to kind of jump out of here, because what he does in his knowledge base is a good barometer in regards to his analysis. We'll see how it plays out. We'll challenge him this year in a lot of ways. So let's get into his top 5 and see how that compares to my top 5. So check that out and let me know what you think. He has at number 5 Norfolk State. So that's where we go around right off the bat. I don't know what he's thinking, but I guess that's what he does. He is Jimmy. 6-11, 2-0, 3 D1 wins. So they came in the conference play, just 1 D1 win, but they've been in the mix the last couple of years. We've seen the big win they got in the tournament a couple of years ago, and so they've been in it. They have a player NBA that continues to support them a lot of ways. It's interesting to see what's going on. Get a lot of players out of New York that obviously oftentimes is a hotbed of basketball, and so you see that playing out. They've always done it.
Well, I was about to say historically.
They've always done it historically. Also, number 4, he has Prairie View A&M at number 4. Interesting. So I guess he's trying to make sure he shows that he's not biased. 6-9, 2-0, 4 D1 wins, and you'll start seeing these D1 wins come up a little bit now. And number 3, he has Morgan State, 8-9, 2-0, jumping off early in the conference race. Prairie View out of the SWAC, Morgan State out of the MEAC, 4 D1 wins. Bringing us to number 2, going back to the SWAC, 8-7, winning record. Number 1. I know we've gotten to thus far is Graham State Tigers sitting at 2-0, 4 D1 wins. Football school getting it done in basketball. How about that?
Yeah.
Indiana number 1, Tennessee State. Like I said, it's the easy one there in a lot of ways right now. Sitting at 10-5, 2-0, 10 D1 wins. That's a beautiful thing.
That's a beautiful thing, and sitting here looking at this poll, and of course there's always vigorous debate in terms of trying to get some of these teams to meet each other.
you read by. Yeah. You getting excited.
Yeah.
Boy, that would have been beautiful. Non-conference play. Couple of plays. Home field. I would have, if I'd have got there early and seen it on the schedule, those are the type of things where I literally would look at a plane ticket, see if I could get there and set up some of these matchups. Boy, but that would be fascinating.
Celebration ball.
You seen Tennessee State kick off the season, to credit. They played Alabama A&M. But also, this is going to be something to kind of keep up over the year. As you said, A&M surprised some people, both on the men's and women's side. Thought they would be there in a lot of ways on the women's side. But got a big win over Jackson State on the road. Really split on the road. They got that done. And won pretty solidly. Jimmy would talk about the fact that they got a true big man that a lot of people may be interested in.
275.
16 guy. 275.
20 and went for 20 and 10 against Jackson State Monday night.
Oh yeah, that's huge. It'll be interesting. Everybody's going to be interested to see when he comes in the gym. Was that just that aberration that he got it done, or is this something you can kind of expect? And if he plays like that, boy, look out! And just in terms of the excitement you see going on, so that's pretty cool. When you talk about it, 6'10", 275, double, 20 points, 10 rebounds.
It's getting it done.
Done, boy. That's exciting. So, as you said, what are your thoughts in terms of what Jimmy said in terms of his top 10, particularly comparing my top 5, Dr. Cavil's top 5 major division men's side to Jimmy's top 5?
Very interesting. He has 2 SWAC teams within that top 5. So, when we kind of talk about basketball, we kind of look toward the East Coast a little bit more. But I think, and to his credit, these are 2 quality SWAC teams in terms of what we're expecting to see from them in terms of Grambling. They're at number 2 and Prairie View at number 4. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any other SWAC teams that can kind of finagle their way into this top 10, if you will. So going forward, I expect from North Carolina Central in the MEAC to start climbing up the polls, in your poll and Jimmy's poll. And Texas Southern last year, they started off 3-3 in SWAC play before they reeled off 11. So it's
who is going to reel off those 6, 7, 8, maybe 9, 10, 11 games in a row?
Exactly.
It's going to be interesting to see who can push themselves outside of others, or who can get back in the race like they did, because they were 3-3, so they needed those wins to get back in the race.
Yeah,
And at that point, we didn't realize it, but they were chasing Prairie View. Just hoping everybody thought that they would come and get them, but Prairie View just kept chugging them off. And while they were putting 11 together, Prairie View's put 9, 10, or what was it? 15 out of 16, 12 out of 13.
You hope it's not a boat race.
So it'll be interesting.
Exactly.
With that, and then the question is about boat racing. Is as you talk about, it's 2 SWAC teams in the top 5. According to both Jimmy and I, 2 MEAC teams in the top 5. But the team that is really getting it done is Tennessee State.
The OBC team.
Right? It'll be interesting. And the other team that you want to keep your eye on again is the other independent program, if you would, Hampton Powers of the Big South. What does that look like? Can they make a statement and they continue to get it done in terms of their conference race? Starting out 1-0 early, I think they play earlier this week, play a Wednesday game.
Right.
If you would, so it'll be interesting. You get a chance to see pretty early. In one case, what they're going to do on that.
In a lot of ways, you keep an eye on Hampton because the impetus, for going to the Big South is, focus on basketball, if you will. So
or at least that's what was part of what was said.
Right.
But I think I do have to point this out. In a lot of ways, it's interesting in talking about the fact that the MEAC, as we talk about those teams, really showed out in regards to what they did against the Big South in particular. See if I can quickly get to you some numbers here about what that was or what that looked like in terms of that manner, as they have gotten some wins over the Big South. Let me run this off. This was as of December 17th, so it was pretty early. I got this as I'm fishing around, as you talk about the work that I try to do in Atlanta, working with the SWAC and the MEAC, getting with coaches, getting with the administrators, getting with the faculty athletic representatives. One of the faculty representatives for MEAC did a breakdown of MEAC wins non-conference. Again, this was as of 27th, their meeting date, and this is what they did against the Big South. They had 6 wins. North Carolina A&T, 63 over to Charleston Southern, 49, 63-49. North Carolina Central over USC Upstate, 73-64. Howard over Hampton, 94-91. Now Hampton did get a little revenge as they beat Norfolk State on the men's side. You had South Carolina State over Presbyterian, 80-68. You had Morgan State over Longwood, 73-65. South Carolina State over UNC Asheville, 90-85. Those were some of the big wins that I saw in terms of what they did. Non-Division I wins, they had 15. Had a win over American, had a win over Atlantic 10, had a win over Colonial, had a win over Ivy League, had a win over Missouri Valley, had a win over Ohio Valley, and 2 wins over the Southland. Just to give you some updates in terms of the men's side. So let me know your thoughts on that.
Those wins over those teams in the Big South and their geographic footprint, I think that's huge in terms of pointing that out in terms of what you can do with that in terms of recruiting and whatnot.
Not to jump off that, Alabama A&M and Grambling did really good in terms of their in-state, getting victories over the 2 or 3 in-state teams that they played. And that you also had the SWAC doing really solid over the Southland teams in there. Stephen F. Austin's top of the conference over there, and overplayed them, but other teams that you got those victory over. On the women's side, before we close up, they also had 6 wins on the women's side. Those wins were South Carolina State over Charleston Southern, 81-75. North Carolina Central over Campbell, 67-64. Norfolk State over High Point, 72-58. Bethune-Cookman over Charleston Southern, 81-41. Norfolk State over Longwood, 49-46. Norfolk State over Hampton, 77-56. As I said, the men lost to Hampton, but the women got a big win over Hampton, 77-56. These are 2 top 5 programs on the winning side that we have in the major division rankings, you got to win over a top 5 program, your rival. That's pretty big, and you might see that on the reverse side as Hampton keeps, Norfolk State keeps winning. You might, and Hampton as well, you might see that reproduce itself later in the season in terms of the men's side. So interesting to kind of keep your eye on that. Last thing I do for you is your thoughts, and we'll do our final goodbyes of the day. Just to let you know what the winner did. They had a win over American, win over America East, 3 wins over the Atlantic Sun, 2 wins over the Colonial Athletic Association, 2 wins over Conference USA, 3 wins over the MAC Mid Athletic Conference in AAC, Ohio, 1 over the Ohio Valley, 2 over Northeast Conference there. They had 1 over the Patriot, 2 over the SoCon, and 2 over the Sun Belt Conference in terms of what took place. And they had 13 non-Division I wins in terms of, so that was as of December 17th. They had essentially 2 more weeks of play to see what they did. It'd be interesting to see what their final analysis was. But that kind of gives you some thoughts in terms of breakdown.
That's impressive.
In terms of conference-wise.
Those wins over Conference USA, those 3 wins over Conference USA, that stands out.
So, just wanted to see your final thoughts on basketball first weekend. As we said, next week we'll get a little more mix as we get into some mid-major. We slept and gave you some of that, but we'll do some top 5 and maybe getting that a little more than what we get.
Especially looking forward to the mid-major next week in terms of getting into a little GCAC action. Talladega, Dillard, and Toulouse all have 4 scores that are to score in double digits.
These are teams top 25 in a ranking. Exactly. It'll be interesting to see about that too. Make sure we give you that kind of information. So great points when you talk about that. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, presented by Amber Slaughter, the project architect. Amber Slaughter, the project architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team management so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the project architect, at www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of College HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we come to a close, we hope you enjoyed our lecture today. Before we do that and do our final close, I did want to ask a little more insight, as I appreciate you spoiling me a little bit about that. I kind of told you, asked you a question in terms of anything that stood out on the positive side in regards to what went on this weekend. And you snuck in some teams that may have concerned you in terms of got off on a slow start. On the court or off the court, in terms of the MEAC, SWAC, if you would, if you want to share anything that came out of the mid-major, you can do that too. SIC, CIAA. You talked about Gulf Coast finna get in there. Anything else that really piqued the interest that our fans should really consider as they get into basketball? Obviously, one thing that is concerning, and maybe you get your thoughts on that, whether you want to share that or review this, is debate about the interest of basketball and how you can put in more interest in terms of HBCU basketball. But one of the things that I've said, and I want to kind of maybe get your thoughts on this, is that basketball early in the season is in a challenging position, particularly in the South SWAC, lower part of the Mid-Eastern Conference when you talk about FAMU, South Carolina State, not so much North Carolina, just the rich tradition there, even though people obviously call that part South in a lot of ways as well, rightfully so. But you have, whether it's high school, with the high school playoffs, we talk about how big that is in Texas.
47,000.
Right. Celebration Bowl going on at the time, that culminates this weekly natural build-up that you have in football coming to the week, and talk about Lathers team play on Saturday. We had a wind down. Obviously, you have coming out of conference championship games. You're in the middle of that. You have the bowl season as it's trending up to now a playoff, at least 4 teams at the college level. You get into the end of the season where teams are trying to get into the playoffs, win divisional crowns at the professional level. You get into your first weekend of playoffs,
Right.
wild card weekend,
Sure.
right? Is there anything that you can do for basketball to gin it up? Because we saw some gyms, frankly, that were pretty empty
Yeah.
in some cases. What are your thoughts on that?
It's tough. I mean, when you take a look the way football kind of dominates, especially the South, if you will, around that time of the year, December, early January, it's a very tough deal to navigate. And I don't know, I've kind of tried to figure out, is there anything that can kind of change the mindset, if you will. And I'm not sure if there is a magic bullet, if you will, so to speak, that can kind of change kind of the mindset, especially the early part of the basketball season, because of just the cultural landscape of how big football is.
The one thing that you were teasing about that I think that must be considered if they want to do it is you're going to have to play
Some matchups.
Yeah. That create the level that you're talking about.
Sure.
And bring your team back on campus, but not just bring them on campus for a game or two against these NIA Division II matchups that get some in if you do that. But you're going to have to play some meaningful matchups that you market, that people can sink their teeth into, that follow basketball with teams that come in last year that did really well. If you're interested in sparking some more interest in basketball. We've got Soapbox Heroes coming up next. Give me a little bit of tease of what you want to bring these folks before we do the final sentence to close this up.
Well, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the Rooney Rule just for a second.
I like it. In sports, right up my box. I like that. Go ahead.
We're going to talk about
Show out a little bit how multi-talented you are.
Well, we're going to bring it into another realm. We're not going to talk about it a lot, but we're going to talk about it in this aspect. How long you going to ask? And I'll just leave it at that. How long are you going to ask? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, conflicts going on. Are we always innocent? Are we always innocent as Americans? And do we play too much? That's the question. Do we play too much? And so that's a little bit what we're going to be talking about tonight, Doc.
All right, good deal. So you all that want to get a different perspective and get into that, you can tune in next to Soapbox Hero. But again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show. Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here, 6 to 7, right here on KCWH 1230 in Houston, Texas. As we get into basketball, both men's and women's, major division, mid-major division. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyatta Cavil. That's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, that's DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Chorus lecture dismissed.
KCOH Houston, Legacy, Civics, and Soul 1230.